All right, we're joined here today with Vinnie Tortorich, a notorious fitness coach, 40 years in the industry, and recently coming out with the Beyond Impossible documentary, which is a hugely enlightening documentary. We're excited to dive into it. But before we do that, Vinnie, what's going on?
Thank you guys for having me on. This is great. When I saw you guys on Twitter, I just gave it a new name. Maybe Elon Musk will take that and run with it. I saw you guys on Twitter. Hey, we're the Meat Mafia. I went, wait a minute, I'm Italian. We could do that.
Yeah.
This is great. And as you know, I will take anyone's invitation to be on anyone's podcast. And you guys are anyone, so here we are. And by the way, I love what you guys are doing out there. So great job.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we've been going at it for a few months, and just getting the podcast up and running has been a lot of fun because we come into contact with people like yourself who are just doing all these amazing things and spreading the great messages out there in the food industry, kind of debunking some of these long-standing narratives. So we are really excited to dive in here.
Well, thank you, man. This is great.
Yeah. Vinnie, something we get asked a lot about, with the follower base that we've built out, we get asked a lot for resources, books, podcasts, documentaries that can help point them in the right direction. So as soon as we started watching and Beyond Impossible, we were like, this is the go-to for anyone that's actually looking to understand what the fuck is going on with the food system right now and all these fake meat commodities that are being produced. So we're excited because now we just have something that we can send them that really answers a lot of those questions. But I think just to take a step back, we were talking before we hit the record button that, you've been an advocate of a low carb diet for 40 plus years. So we would love to just learn a little bit more about your background, what got you into that dietary approach, and just how things have evolved over the years for you.
Yeah. I have a degree in exercise physiology and nutrition from Tulane. And that's the last time I'm going to brag on myself on this podcast. But I was on a football scholarship, and I really took school seriously. And I think everyone else that was going through stuff like gross anatomy and everything, they were all just there to become doctors. And I wasn't. I never wanted to be a doctor or anything else. And when I saw that I can get a degree in exercise physiology, I went, oh, that's pretty cool, because I've been working out my whole life before, when working out wasn't cool. I mean, we're talking the early 1970s, and I was in a gym, and hearing it, bro science was even a thing back then, believe it or not. It didn't start when YouTube started. So when I got to college, I was really interested in learning what the truth was. And I'll never forget the first day when, well, this is a really good question, Brett. I was doing a lab, and I was working with a girl named Lisa Weil. She was one of my lab partners, and we had one of the athletes from the track team on the treadmill, and we had him in zone 4. And we were checking, we were pricking him for lactic acid, getting blood samples. You ever see a Gatorade commercial where they have the guy all hooked up to wires and the thing coming out of his mouth?
Yeah.
We were doing that, as the kids say, for reals, and so that's what we were doing. And I just happened to notice, because we were getting all these readouts, we had a very rudimentary way to figure out calorie expenditure, which most people don't really get, right? But, calorie is just a unit of measuring energy output, right? It's how much energy it takes to raise 1 emulsified drop of water 1 degree. That's what calorie means. It's just a measurement. And just like every other measurement of torque in METs and everything else. At any rate, I just happened to notice this guy had been running full tilt for about, 20 minutes. We finally wore him out about 22 minutes. And this is a well-trained college athlete. And in that 20 minutes, he had burned somewhere near 170 calories, something like that. 180 maybe, So that means in an hour, he would have burned like less than 600 calories at full tilt.
Interesting.
Let's say full tilt, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
this guy couldn't go another step. We had to grab him on, and I think he probably threw up. I mean, we were getting him to lactic acid threshold. And so Linda and I were sitting out on a bench. It was a sunny day and we were having a sandwich. And when we got done with our sandwich, she pulled out a packet of M&Ms. Now, your generation, you guys are both too young to know this, but M&Ms used to come in a little package that was about maybe 3 inches tall and about 1.5 inches wide. Candy used to come in regular size. There were no super size or 30% more, 50% more. So M&Ms, I don't even know if they make those packets anymore. That it was just a little small packet. So you would get like 2 handfuls and you were done. That's what candy used to be, right? And so Linda, after we finished our sandwiches, she pulled out a bag of M&Ms, ripped the top off, and she took a handful and then handed them to me. I took the other handful, put them in my mouth, and then I turned the packaging over. And I'm reading the back of the package, and I went, huh. And Linda didn't pick up on that. No one liked to pick up on when I would say, huh, because it meant I was getting ready to bore the ever-living fuck out of you. Can I curse on your podcast?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more the merrier.
Okay. So I sat there for a second, and again, I went, ha. And Linda goes, okay, what? I said, look at this. She goes, yeah. I said, it says here in this package, there's 162 calories of energy in this package. She goes, yeah, so. I said, okay, we just ran a well-trained athlete almost into extinction in 20 minutes, and he couldn't burn this off.
Damn.
He barely burned this off. And she goes, yeah, so. And I said, so everything, right. Linda. She goes, what are you talking about? I want to be a physical therapist. What the fuck? I was like, no, you don't understand. Calories, look at this. Unless our calculations were wrong, and they weren't, calories don't matter in weight loss, because what it takes you to do in 20 minutes at full tilt, we ate in a handful. We put it away in less than a minute. We chewed all of this in less than a minute. Boom, bam, gone. And she goes, so what? I said, so everything. We have this all wrong. And I knew we had it all wrong. See, you guys only have to ask one question. I'll just take over for the hour. Sit back, guys. I got this.
Beautiful.
I knew we had this all wrong because 2 years earlier, I had a professor explain to us that fat was the most viable of all the calories. We had 3 macronutrients, and fat was our body's preferred energy source. And I wrote voracious notes. I did. Matter of fact, I still write with fountain pens. You guys even know what a fountain pen is?
Oh, that's a nice one. I have this crappy, I don't even know what it is, type of pen, but.
All of my pens, like everything on my desk, fountain pens. I only use,
This is why you're the godfather.
I'm the godfather. I wrote my book, Fitness Confidential. You guys probably don't even know I wrote a book.
No, we do. We do.
We do.
I wrote it longhand with a fountain pen.
Really?
Yes. I write everything with fountain pen. And in college, I was the same way. I would just sit. I'm a voracious note taker. And with a fountain pen, man, with my penmanship from the nuns, I can just sit there. I can look at you, not even look down, and just rock and roll, man. And
how long did it take you to write that book by hand?
No longer than it would take anyone to type it out, because I can't type. So I had to write it longhand. And I also wrote it with Dean Laurie. We could talk about the book later.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, when I'm writing notes, I'm writing, and whatever the professor's saying, I'm writing. And then when I flip the page, I'll look down for 1 second and write the date on the next page. When I go back that night, I was a weird student. right? I'm just a weirdo. So you need to understand that first.
Yep.
I would go back at night and title pages, right? Whatever's written on that page. So if I have to refer back to it, and by the way, when you do that, when you write, you're using two senses, right? So, and you go back and you read it that night and you title it, you don't even have to study for the final. It's already in there. You already know it, right? It's kind of weird. So that was I learned to do that in college. And so a couple of months passed, same professor. And, I was kind of looking out the window. It was kind of a springtime day. And I'm writing notes while I'm looking out the window and the whole thing. And he goes, carbohydrates is the body's preferred fuel. If you want to run really fast, you need to take in carbohydrates. And I dropped my pen, my hand went up. And when my hand went up, everyone else at Tulane University would go, they hated me.
They knew it was coming.
See, every other kid there was just trying to either get into med school or law school. I didn't want to be a lawyer or a doctor. I took school. I was like the Forrest Gump of students. I was just there learning shit.
Yeah.
Right. And the other reason they also hated me was they graded on the curve. And if I set the curve, the guy that's gone to med school would now have to keep up with the idiot who set the curve. So they would even ask me before a test, it's like, how do you feel? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I was screwing up these kids that were trying to get into med school and didn't even realize it. I'm bragging right now, but it was all because both of my parents were teachers, and I learned that voracious note taking is the best thing to do. So raised my hand. The professor goes, okay, Vinny, what's going on? I said, and I'm flipping back and flipping back and flipping back. And I go, on February 12th, you said that fat is the body's preferred fuel. And now you're saying carbohydrates. And he goes, yeah, that's right. I said, what's right? Which one's going to be on your test? And he goes, well, the brain needs fat to survive, and the brain needs fat, and fat is very important. It's a fuel that we burn slowly. And he even gave an example. He goes, think of a fireplace. Fat is like the log, right? It's a big log. It burns slowly and it burns long, and it keeps that fireplace warm. Think of carbohydrates. He goes, think of proteins as being right in the middle. That's like if you put like a light piece of like balsa wood in there, it'll burn pretty quickly. But carbohydrates, just like paper. You ever put paper in the fireplace? It just flames up. And that's the example he used. And I've always used that example. So thank you for that, Professor. And I said, okay, so why carbohydrates? And he said, because when you're running at a very high rate of speed, like a marathon or something, they're running really fast or whatever, you need these carbohydrates because your body can't use the fat. It can't get that log burning fast enough, right? These are the examples. I'm not smart enough to make this up, right?
Yeah.
I'm hearing it from a professor at one of the top universities, a medical school, no less. Why should I believe anything different? So when I got out of college, and by the way, I was a football player, short, quick spurts. What do you need? Carbohydrates. Right. We ate nothing but beef on training table. We ate eggs, we ate bacon, we ate beef. But on game day, when we got on the field, they gave us nothing but sugar, Gatorade. You see, so I was indoctrinated in that whole thing too. Right.
What did you make of that at the time with were you applying that knowledge that there were these like paradigms that weren't really adding up well,
the paradigms did add up. They did, because I would always eat meat because meat had protein. You need protein to build muscles. I was built, you should have seen me back in the day. I was built like a brick shit house.
I saw you on Oprah.
Oh, you saw that? Well, gee, thanks. But even that was after I lost a lot of my football weight. I was built like, I was talking about this today. The black guys on the team, for some reason, black guys like to, they nick everything. Like everyone gets a nickname. And all of a sudden they started calling me Link. Like, Link. And, it means something, but I couldn't understand what it meant. Link. What does Link mean? They're calling me Link. And, so one day I was walking back to the dorms with my good friend Donald Ray. And I said, hey, Doc, Duck was one of the African American kids. I said, Duck, why are all the black guys calling me Link? And you see, I'm Italian, so I'm hairy, and I was built like an ape. He goes, Link, like the missing link. Yeah,
That's actually really good.
Yeah, it was the best. I was like, yeah, I'm the missing link. That's so true. And so, yeah, they never get it wrong. I knew it was something good, and I just didn't know what it was. But I knew that in order to build muscle, I needed protein, right? And I needed fat for long-term fuel. And look, my waist is 31 right now. It was 31 in college. Right? It was the same thing. I knew I needed these carbohydrates on the field because they worked, right? It worked. And I'm built like Stallone from Rambo. So why wouldn't I think any otherwise?
Right.
But when I started working with people in New Orleans, I'm one of the earliest trainers in this country. There was a half a dozen I was back at the time. And they used to do articles on guys like me back in those days. And, early on, I didn't take the advice of what I learned at Tulane because I was training people while I was still an undergrad. I took the advice from my great grandmother from Calabria and my other grandmother who was from Sicily. Old Italian grandmothers knew that if you eat too much bread, you get fat. How do they know this? Yet nobody else knows this, right? So I had this education, but I also had Italian grandmothers from a different country where English wasn't even their first language, right? And they knew this, right?
Yeah.
Eat your meat. They think Italians sit around and eat meat, spaghetti all day and pizza. No, they eat meat with a side of,
right,
of a filler. Most people don't know that pasta puttanesca means whore pasta. Did you know that?
No.
Salazzo?
No, we need to go back and get back to our roots.
I don't. I need to teach you guys how to be Italian.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be the godfather here, but I could teach you guys that there's pasta puttanesca, putta. It means whore.
Yeah.
People walk into restaurants, fine restaurants, bring me the whore's pasta. Yeah. And, I started seeing this because also in the early and the mid 80s, very, very rich people glommed onto me in New Orleans, all this rich oil money people. And turns out that rich oil money people like to go vacation somewhere else. And they brought me to Aspen. And I went to Aspen around 1984, 85. And I'm there. And when I got there, other rich people went, wait a minute, you do what? I'll take you up a mountain, whatever you want. What do you charge? Whatever you want to give me. I'm on vacation. You want to give me some? People are paying me money, inviting me to parties and the whole thing. And this book came out. They were all reading this book. It was written by Dr. Robert Haas. By the way, I forgot to mention, I have a photographic memory. It was written by Dr. Robert Haas. It's called Eat to Win. And everybody's reading this book, and they're all going to a place called Mezzaluna's. You may remember Mezzaluna's because there was one in Brentwood, California, and that's where OJ's wife went right before someone killed her.
Oh, man.
They still haven't caught the murderer. He's out there.
Somewhere.
Yeah, nobody knows what happened.
Nobody knows.
But at any rate, there was two Mezzalunas, Brentwood, California, Aspen, Colorado, where rich people hang out. And all these rich people, they invite me to Mezzalunas. So I'll go. They're paying for it. What do I care? Now, you got to remember, these are 1980 prices, okay? I'll walk in the Mezzalunas, and they got all these pasta dishes. And there's no meat. It's just pasta. It's like, what, you want the linguine and this sauce, or would you like the linguine and that sauce? Or you could get it with just olive oil, but it'll be light olive oil. And I'm going, and I'm looking at the prices, $18. We're talking 1985.
Yeah.
$18 could buy you a whore. I mean, a high class whore, not the cheap kind. I'm talking teeth and everything.
Wow. The teeth too.
Yeah, shoes. Some of them had shoes. So at any rate,
in Aspen.
In Aspen. No, in Aspen, the whores are a lot more expensive. You got to give them a couple of thousand Coke or something. I'm not talking about the kind that comes in a can. So I'm like, what the hell's going on here? They're all reading this book. They're all showing up at Mezzalunas. There's a line of rich people out front to go eat peasant food. I grew up with peasants. I'm a peasant. They're going in there. My grandparents and parents, they were so proud to put meat on the table. And in 1984, they're taking meat off the table. And I'm sitting there going, I'm living in bizarro world. I'm telling my clients, you got to get off the carbohydrates or you're not going to lose weight. My great grandmother knows this.
Yeah.
And, oh no, Dr. Robert Haas. So someone gave me a copy of the book. I read it in 2 nights. I would have read it in 1 night, but I had to go hike with rich people the next morning. They were paying me. So it took me 2 nights. I thought I was reading a book about comedy. This guy was going, he created the phrase, I'm going to try to say it with a straight face. Fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates. That's where that term comes from, that book, Eat to Win.
And were you NFNG at this point? That's
no sugars, no grains.
Yeah, or yeah, no sugars, no grains.
Yeah, with my clients I was. And I would always tell them when we're out hiking, if you guys want to have bananas, you want to have something sweet when you're hiking, that's fine. When you're not hiking, no desserts, no nothing. You know, we got to stay away from the bread, the pasta. And that's how everyone thought I was a genius. I would take people, and back then, you got to remember, in 1985, we didn't have morbidly obese people, right? And especially rich people. They weren't morbidly obese. They had, Total Cereal used to have a thing, if you can pinch an inch, you're fat. I'm not making this up. You could go look this up online. I think it was Total. It was one of the if you could pinch an inch, that's too much, that's too fat. Can you imagine that ad running today?
That would not fly today.
This was in the 80s. Nobody said, but these people were trying to go, 5-10 pounds down. They thought I was a genius. I was like, oh my, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just exercising them, taking them off of grains pretty much.
Yeah.
And then this guy, Robert Haas, comes out with a book, and I'm yelling at everybody in Aspen, stop. No, you're doing the wrong thing. But you see, other things were going on. You just have Mezzalunas. Everybody was doing it. Everybody was like, if it doesn't have fat in it, you can't get fat, because of what happened between 1968 and 78. The McGovern Committee, you saw it in my first movie, right?
Yep.
The truth is way stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
I show the whole piece of it throughout my first movie, Fat, a Documentary. You can't make this stuff up.
No, it's unbelievable.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, I've been living this. So what happens is, in 2007, I was riding a bike and my phone kept ringing. And so finally I went, oh, what the fuck? Everyone knows not to call me on Saturday. I ride my bike all day. So I pick up the phone and I go, somebody better be dead. And it's my friend Patty. And she's crying. And she says, I know you're on your bike. Get off of your bike and take a cab to my house. And I said, Patty, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm all the way over in Ventura County. I'm in the mountains. She goes, I don't care where you are. I said, Patty, there's no one's going to pick me up. What's wrong? She goes, get to my house as soon as you can. So I told my training partners, I said, I need to go see Patty. And he said, who's Patty? I said, don't worry about it. But I think I'm dying. And they said, well, why do you think that? And I said, because Patty's an oncologist and she's crying. Now, Patty and I had gone in, and you'll see this when you read the book. You might even have me back after you read the book, or maybe not.
You're guaranteed coming on again, just so you know.
Oh,
If you want to, we'd love to have you.
after these bullshit stories, you're going to have me back. Patty and I went in. I had had a bone marrow biopsy that I had done, and it's in the book. We talk about it. I didn't take any anesthesia. I just had them drill in, just cold. And she got the results back on a Saturday because she's a doctor. She can do that. And I was loaded up with leukemia, and I was dying, and I didn't even know it. Right?
Were you feeling? You said you didn't even know it. Was it just something you were just
had some issues? Yeah, I had. I wasn't feeling good all the time. I was muscle wasting. I was dropping weight. I looked gaunt. I looked, and I was chalking it up to too much training, too much bike.
Right.
These ultra races. I'm getting older. I was in my 40s and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I go through cancer, and then turns out I lived. Ta-da.
Vinnie, sorry to interrupt you. Were you training for the race against Oregon at that time?
I was training for that year. I was training for the 508 when it was still in the desert.
Got it.
And because I had gotten hurt in the 508 the year before, I went like 300 some odd miles and had a knee injury and had to abandon the race. So I was coming back to do that race again. And no, so that year I did not have the race across Oregon on my schedule. But it would be like 100 degrees outside, 105 out in California. I was still wearing my winter clothes. I was always cold and all this kind of stuff. And Patty knew something was wrong. So she got me to a different oncologist, a blood doctor. And that's how we figured it out. I told you that story to tell you this story. After my cancer, after I got healed up, my good friend, Dean Laurie, who's done TV shows and movies and you name it, he's written a lot of shit you guys have probably seen. And we used to go out every Friday night to get a piece of fish and a scotch. And every week he would tell me, you need to write a book. And Hollywood wanted me to write a book for a long time because I had a lot of famous clients and they wanted me to tell stories on these people. And I refused to do it. So I said, Dean, not you, please, not you. And he was like, you got to do it. And I said, I said, Simon Schuster, HarperCollins, they all want me to tell stories about my famous clients. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And he said, one weekend he came and we're having fish and we're having scotch. I know that's a weird combination, but that's what we did.
Yeah.
And he says, I got something I want you to do. I said, I'm not writing a book. He says, I want you to read a book. And I'm, wait, I like to read. All right, I read a book. And I said, what book would you like me to read? He goes, I want you to read Anthony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential. And okay, I'm not much into cooking, but let's see what I can do. I came home. Turns out my wife had the book, and I went through it in 2 days. And I called Dean, and I went, oh my God, I know what you want me to do. I get what you want me to do. So I took one of my fountain pens, and every day when the mail would come in, as I was leaving the house, I would take all the junk mail out of the mailbox, throw it in my truck. And when I was at stoplights, I would have thoughts while I'm driving around LA. I would just jot it down on the back of these envelopes. I want them to go completely to waste. And then after I got done with that, I split them open and write all on the inside. And then I would come home at night. I would type into the computer because I can't really type. I would, one finger it into the computer. And I was so scared I would lose the notes that my wife, I don't really know how to use a computer. She set up a Word document or something. Is it called Word or something document?
Yeah.
And I would take that and I would send it to Dean so it can be kept safely somewhere. Well, maybe 4 months passed and we were having our fish and scotch. And Dean says to me, hey man, you've written like 45,000 words in notes. I said, really? What does that mean? He goes, most books are 60 or 70,000 words. You've almost written a book in notes.
Right.
And he goes, you bullet point everything and you correlate and you do all this stuff. He goes, I've been taking your notes and organizing them. I said, oh, thanks. And he goes, why don't you come by my office and we'll look at that organization and maybe you should start writing the book. So we sat in his office that day, and we worked for 3 hours. I worked with a fountain pen. He would write stuff on a computer, and he would say, in the book, he goes, "You wrote here, trainers are like astronauts. What does that mean?" And I would talk, and while I'm talking, I'm writing, and he would start typing stuff, and I would write some more. And the more he typed, the more I would write. And it was almost like a competition. And 3 hours went by like it was nothing. Right. And he goes, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Nothing. We did this every day. We did this every day." There was a big writer strike going on. There was all this stuff going on. I wasn't working much because when writers strike, actors don't act. Vinnie doesn't work. Dean doesn't work. We had time on our hands. I was basically training a rapper, a rock star, and Howie Mandel. And then I would go to Dean's house. That was it. And
sounds like a pretty good life.
Yeah. I wasn't making any money. 3 clients, you can't live in LA, but
yeah,
we did this. And the reason I tell you that story is this. I felt weird the entire time because I was giving up my secrets, right? The low carb keto movement hadn't started yet. We're talking 2010, 2011. And the movement hadn't started. As a matter of fact, I refused to put the word ketogenic in my book. And Dean kept saying, "Why are you against this?" And I said, because if this book gets published, every doctor in the world is going to come out and go, "He's telling you guys to go into ketoacidosis. He's going to kill you." I refused to put ketogenic in a book. But he goes, "You got to call it something." I said, "I'm calling it no sugars, no grains, because that's what I've been telling you guys for years." And that's how this all started. I don't know if that's what you guys wanted to hear, but that's what I told you.
So with the no sugars, no grains, was that a concept that you came up with? Like, when did that really start coming into the picture for you? Was it when you were dealing with your cancer, or was it prior to that?
When I got from New Orleans to LA in 1991, so you could count back with us 30 some odd years now.
Yeah.
I started picking up clients first at Playboy Corporation. And there was an exec there. She was one of my early clients. She weighed 300 some odd pounds, and I got her down to 160 in no time. And she was like a billboard. And then Playboy started using me for Playmates and all that kind of stuff, right? And I knew that Hollywood was crunchy granola. In New Orleans, you don't have much of a problem telling people to eat as if Julia Childs just showed up, right? But in LA, it's too much crunchy granola and vegans and all this kind of stuff. And so I had to soft play it. So my things became, got to stay off sugar, stay away from sugar, no grains, no sugar. I became the no sugars, no grains guy.
Gotcha.
And but they didn't call me that. They called me the quick weight loss guy because I would just put people into dietary ketosis and they would lose weight. And that's how I became semi-famous, because I did it for a girl named Margaret Cho, who they were giving a sitcom to. And I took 60 pounds off of her in no time. And of course, when the sitcom came out, Margaret was this funny, great comedian. But when she went on to Jay Leno and David Letterman, and at the time, Arsenio Hall and all these shows, the first thing they said was, "Oh my God." This was before, fat shaming was a thing. "Oh my God, you look amazing. Look, oh my God, what happened?" This guy, Vinnie, he came in and he did this, and look at me. And of course, at that point in 1992 or 3 or whenever it was, 92, every agent in town had my name in their Rolodex. They were like, "Find this guy, find his number, get him in here now." And so the reason I'm telling you that is not to brag. I'm telling you that because actors are very, very hard people. They don't care what it takes. If they're told to gain weight or lose weight for a role, they will. If they say, "You got to listen to everything this idiot WAP is telling you," that's what they're going to do. Because the way they look at it is, I could do anything for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks. If he's telling me to eat eggs and bacon, I'm not going to die in 6, 8, or 10 weeks. And then when they didn't die and they actually felt better, they would hire me on their dime. See, studios would pay me. They would hire me on their dime
Mm-hmm.
You see, so that's the way it happened. They didn't care how the sausage was packed, pun intended. They just cared that it was getting, the job was getting done. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I kind of had a way in where no one cared. When people have $1 million or $2 million on the line, if I tell them to eat bacon and eggs, they're going to fucking do it.
Mm.
It's just the way it was. I got lucky. I got very lucky.
So you were seeing that your clients would follow your training advice, 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks to get ready for a movie. And then they were like, oh shit, I actually feel way better on this diet of eggs, bacon, red meat, etc. Why don't I hire this guy to help program me? Because I want to eat like this in my day-to-day life. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it became one of those things where they go, why can't I look and feel like this all the time? Now, some of them did the thing where they would, they would go, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm killing myself here for a role. They really felt like they were killing themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And they would have their vegan friends going, oh my God, what are you doing? Oh my, your heart's going to stop, and all this stuff. And they're like, I don't know, this guy seems to eat like that all the time. I'll never forget, I was with a celebrity for 4 hours one time, and this was more recent. Let's say like 7 or 8, 10 years ago, because Starbucks was now a thing. And I sat in a Starbucks trying to convince this person for 4 hours in a Starbucks that this is what she should do to lose weight. And she was so into diet culture. She was asking me questions, like she couldn't wrap her mind around. I kept saying, look, I know you feel like you're going over to the dark side. And she couldn't wrap her mind around it. She was like, but won't meat get stuck in my heart? It's like, no, that's vegan propaganda. Nothing like that happens. And she thought I was making this up. And I had run out of coffee at around the 2-hour mark. And she wanted another coffee. So we walked up and we're walking up. And I said, coffee, heavy cream on the side. And she saw me walk back with this heavy, milky cream. And I poured some in my coffee. I like my coffee to look nice and brown, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just got back from the beach. That kind of brown.
Sugar cookie brown. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kept the rest of it on the table because I hadn't eaten all day. And I just come from a hike before this damn marathon thing. And I start sipping on the heavy cream. She goes, what are you doing? I said, this is pure fat. This is good. And she was like, she looked at me, she goes, how do you stay? She didn't hear anything else in 4 hours. She goes, wait a minute, you actually do this? I went, yeah. And she goes, you're putting fat in your mouth and you're not fat. And I said, is that what you're taking from this? And she goes, yes, this is what I'm taking from. I had no idea. You do this too. I said, yeah. She goes, how long have you been doing this? It's since the 80s. I had some M&Ms one day with Lisa, and I've been doing it since then. And she was like, and what about your arteries and all that? I said, I have a calcium score of 0. I'm in my 50s. I'm at 0 calcium score. She goes, how could you? I said, because everything you've been told is a lie.
So you've seen the whole evolution of all these narratives come and go over the years. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is the dogmatism with all this diet culture. Everyone's got a cult that they're subscribing to that they need to defend to the end. And it seems like you've kind of maybe intentionally or unintentionally been able to ride your wave without really getting dogmatic about it. How do you view that? It seems like it's come up in some of your documentaries where you've really started to, when you're educating, trying to unfold and unpack some of the misinformation out there. But like, what's your view on the entire landscape of how people think about diet these days?
I come from I don't care attitude.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. People go, vegans hate you and this and that, and the whole thing. It's like, I don't care. Look, I just did a podcast for my Wednesday show, and I wrote one note at the top of my piece of paper here. You can see it. It says my program.
Yeah.
You see that? My program. And I wrote your name underneath it. I'm not big on notes. Although I write notes all the time. For my shows, I keep them wide open. And, I was on Mike Rowe's podcast a couple of weeks ago, So all of a sudden I got another 500,000 people listening to me because of Mike Rowe. And, you know, these people are going, tell me more about your program. And I did a whole podcast. It's not my program. I didn't create how humans should eat. This is not a program. This is not trickery. This is not, you can only have 20 almonds, or you can only have this in the morning, and you can only drink water and then have some apple cider vinegar and then have 2 drinks, 2 shakes and a sensible meal at night. And you can save all of your Weight Watcher points and have 5 brownies at night. This is not a program. This is how you live. Right. And that's why I do it for free. Right. I don't have a horse in the race. I don't care. Do you understand? If I started caring, I would only care if I had money involved. Right. I don't have money involved. So even when the vegans go and go, he's bought and paid for by the beef industry, I'm going, yeah, I wish they would. I wish they would. I would be talking about them twice as much. But the vegans are coming, oh, he's bought and paid for. Those movies are bought and paid for. You have any idea how I made my movies?
We'd love to know.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to tell you whether you want to know or not. I don't think you had
It's your program.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. You guys get me all choked up here. You know, the podcast got really popular. And I don't care what anyone thinks about me or anyone else. I really don't. I can give a shit. I should have been dead. I should have died of cancer, and somehow I lived. And you know how old are you guys? Brett, how old are you?
27, and Harry's 28.
28.
Okay. You know how your generation talks about my truth? Well, it's my truth. Guess what? Fuck you. There's not my truth, and it's not your truth. There's a universal truth to everything.
Right.
Right? There's a universal truth. Right? So since there's a universal truth, there's not my truth and your truth. There's the truth. Okay? So I don't care what anyone says. I don't get butthurt when someone says I'm killing people and I'm killing sentient beings, and I don't do any of that. It's just the truth. I'm just telling the truth. And people always ask me, why don't you get canceled? It's like, well, I don't fuck my secretary for one. You can't cancel someone who doesn't want to be canceled. Who are you going to go tell? Who are you going to go tell? Oscar Mayer to take my deal away? I don't have a deal with him.
Right.
See, as long as I don't worry about anyone else's money, you can't cancel someone. I'm not cancelable. Right. So I can keep telling the truth. So people started coming to me when my podcast got and it was like, oh, you need to do the opposite of forks over knives and what the health. You need to tell the lie in the other direction. And I said, no, I can't do that because that's not the truth. And they said, well, you should. And I would always go, well, why me? There's a lot of people. Go talk to Ken Berry. Go talk to Sean Baker. Go talk to any of them. And, you know, they'll be glad to do a movie, right? Why do you guys want me? Well, because you live in Hollywood. It's like, well, because I live in Hollywood, you think I make a call?
Yeah.
You think that's the way it works? Hey, Weinstein brothers, I want to make a movie. Right? You know, so I met with a couple of people. I met with Denny Tedesco. He had put out a very good documentary about something. And he told me, oh, it's going to be $500,000. And I was having dinner with Adam Carolla. I'm name dropping now. And I said, Adam, you've done a couple of documentaries. He goes, I said, you know, I talked to your guy, Mike August, and he's telling me $500,000. And Adam goes, yeah, you could probably do 300,000. I don't know, 300, probably get it done. Man, pass the potatoes. So yeah, I'm like, well, geez, everyone's telling me $500,000. Carolla's telling me 300,000. All of those numbers seemed astronomical to me. And then one day, I met this guy, Peter Pardini. And Peter, I met him on the Adam Carolla show. I was exiting the show and Peter was coming on. And he had just done a documentary about the band Chicago. And when I'm giving up my seat, he was coming in. He goes, "Hey, man, I'm a big fan." And I'm like, "Hey, great to meet you." I didn't know who the guy was.
Mm.
So for once, I listened to the show the next day, and he talked about his movie, Chicago. And oh, by the way, he gave me his number. I don't know. He was a big fan. He gave me a card, and he wrote his number, and he handed it to me. It was in my wallet. And the next day, I listened to the show, and he did a movie about the band Chicago. And I like Chicago. Right? I grew up with that stuff.
Great band.
So I watched the movie, and I went, "Oh shit, it's a really good movie." So I reached into my wallet, and I called this number, and Peter picked up. He was backstage at a Chicago concert, and he goes, "Who's this?" I said, "Vinnie Tortorich." He goes, "Why are you calling me?" I said, "Because you gave me your number." He goes, "I'm at a Chicago concert." He goes, "I can't believe you're calling me." And I went, "You did a great movie." He goes, "Oh my God, you've seen my movie." We were fanboying on each other. And he goes, "I've lost so much weight doing NSNG, no sugars, no grains." Man, that's great. I said, "How would you like to be on a podcast to push your movie?" And he goes, "Yeah, come on." So he didn't live very far from me. I had him over to the house, and he did the podcast. And when he was walking out, he said, "You should do the documentary." And I said, "Oh, Peter, not you too." He goes, no, you should really do the documentary." I said, "Look, the best number I've heard was out of my buddy Corolla's mouth. He said 300,000. I don't have that kind of money to throw around." And he said, "You don't need it." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, you can crowdfund this money." And I was like, "I can do what?" He goes, "Crowdfund." And I was like, "Why would anybody give me money?" And he goes, "Because you're Vinny." And I said, "Okay." So I'll get $5. How do I get the rest? And he goes, "No, man." He goes, "Look, I'm telling you, you can get this on your name." This was all news to me.
Mm.
So, and I said, "Well, 300, Corolla's done." He goes, "If you want to work with me, we can get this thing made for 150.
Mm.
And I said, "Really?" He goes, I can call in some favors. I can do this. I can do that. I'll do that. So we start crowdfunding. And I didn't think, and by the way, guys, I thought that this meant, I might get $40,000. And then I can go, "You see, no one wanted to do this." And we would just move on. And I can say, "Look, I tried." I didn't want to do a movie. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't want to do a movie.
And was this for Fat, or was this for Beyond Impossible?
Fat, a documentary, the original.
The first one. Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't get 150,000. We got closer to 250,000.
Wow.
And I was shocked. It was like a crazy amount of money. And if you look at the crowdfunding thing, I think it shows like 230 or something, or 200. Some people said, "Look, I don't want to go through that," and just wrote me checks. It was like, why give them a percentage? People were just writing me checks. And then I felt weird because now I had all this money sitting in an account. So I had to go make a movie. Right. And by the way, they say in the bylaws of these things, you don't have to produce anything. You could just take the money, it's yours. People gave you that money, you don't owe them anything. But I felt like I owed people. And I'm telling you guys this story for a reason, because I made the deal with Gravitas Ventures off of that movie.
Mm.
The movie did gangbusters. I would go on airplanes. I would see my movie on airplanes. It was, the only thing I told Gravitas Ventures, Brendan, I said, "I never want to sell this to Netflix or Hulu or any of these one-stop shops." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because they will give me X amount of money. I can be selling it to a vegan, and they will fucking bury it, and we will never see it again."
Right.
I want this to be everywhere. I want it on iTunes. I want it on airplanes. I want it on they put it on 70 VODs around the world, video on demands. Right. That movie took off. We beat that year. Free Solo was the #1 movie that summer. We went to the top of the charts and knocked Free Solo off the charts and stayed there for 3 weeks. Wow. Until a movie about Aretha Franklin, who had freshly died, came out. And then we overtook her, and then Free Solo came back and overtook us.
Wow.
That's what that movie did.
So Vinny, this is the first documentary you've ever created. and it
Right.
turned out to be the documentary of the year.
No, they didn't call it that, but it was,
It was.
it's still today the #1 movie Gravitas Ventures has ever put out of all movies, not just documentaries.
Wow.
That's why I can call the president of Gravitas. But we did this movie and all of the money came back to me.
Yeah.
Right? Plus more. Now I felt weird because I didn't earn that $250,000. I didn't feel like that was my money. Most people, I think, would say, I could be wrong. Most people would go, you know what? I took a big chance at a high school dance. And here I am. I got lucky, but I got that money plus more. So what did I do during the pandemic? I pumped that money right back in and did Fatta Documentary 2. Now, it didn't take all the money, but it took a lot of it. And I did a pandemic film to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, now I feel good. I put the money back out there and people can watch it if they want to. And now I feel like I've done my best. I've given people their money back. Well, as fate would have it, the fucking money came back again. Now I'm sitting on this money. And I went, you know what? I tried to give it back. I really did. But it came back again. My mom even said, your second movie is better than your first. So now I'm just looking around on the internet and I start reading, fake meat. I start going, well, Cargill is getting into this and Tyson Foods is getting into this. These are meat companies. And, these people got billions of dollars at this. And wait, what's James Cameron is getting involved in these movies and all this kind of stuff, Game Changers. And I'm looking at all this stuff. And I start looking at the people that were in Game Changers and I start looking them up. And it's like, well, wait a minute. These are just bold-faced lies. And James Cameron's out there lying. And he's got his friend Schwarzenegger saying that he's a vegan, which is it's another lie.
He's got eggs in the fridge.
Yeah. We showed it all in the movie. I mean, go on, Brett.
I was just going to, the Schwarzenegger thing for me in Game Changers was insane because you can literally just look up golden era bodybuilding diet and all those guys were hammering red meat and eggs and cheese, cottage cheeses and everything that you're talking about. And that's why I think your documentary is so good, is because it's very simple. Follow the money and you'll find out what people's intentions actually are.
It wasn't that hard to do. And I started saying about 7 or 8 years ago when keto and low carb became a thing, the vegans were losing their stronghold. It's like, oh shit, this keto thing actually works. People are losing weight. So they went, oh, cow farts. And so I started looking into that. It's like, And when you get people like Dr. Mitlerner and some of these people, some of the most brilliant minds on the planet, and they don't have a horse in the race, right? They're just, again, there's your truth. And then there's the universal truth, right? And when you get people like Frank Mitlerner showing up and Frederick Lacroix and all these people, these are some of the smartest minds out there.
Yeah.
And they're just going, no. It just does not work this way. And go on.
The resistance that they face is pretty remarkable from what I can tell as a third party, is two incredibly smart guys who are doing great research and trying to put great information out there. It seems like they face so much resistance and pushback from this higher agenda, so to speak.
We all do. I remember one day a few years ago, I was getting ready to interview Malcolm Kendrick, who was on my show several times. And he was a little disturbed. He goes, somehow my Wikipedia went away this morning. It was just gone. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So I went to my Wikipedia. Mine was gone. All of a sudden, my Wikipedia was gone. And so I went to my wife is an actress. And so I went to her Wikipedia and I was removed from hers. And then I went to my hometown of 6,000 people, Donaldsonville, Louisiana. And I was considered one of the famous people from down. When you come from a small town, it doesn't take a lot to become famous. And there was, I'd written books and I had movies and everything else. And so you do that and you're one of the most famous people from that town, right? I was removed from that. I was completely wiped off of social media. I'm constantly being shadow banned on Twitter. If you look at the number of people who have watched my movies and who have, done this, that, and the other thing, I should easily have on Twitter, I don't want to exaggerate, 200,000-300,000 people.
100%.
Right.
Definitely.
You showed in the documentary, I think you were at 34,000 followers.
Yeah, I'm
And-
probably just shy of 40 now, but it
Well,
grows.
you should have way more though, is the point, right?
Right. Like when I went on Instagram just a couple of years ago, just to give you an example, I went on Instagram and immediately I had 2,000 people. And then a couple of days later, 4,000 people, a few days later, 11,000 people, a couple of days later, 20,000 people, and then boom, it stopped. And I'm still shy of 30,000 people. And, I have a guy who looks at my numbers and everything. He goes, for every 2 people you move up, they take 1.5 people away. And they just, and people write to me all the time. Hey, why did you get rid of me on social media? What did I offend you? Or I never see your post. Guys like me, everyone's talking about Elon Musk coming in and buying Twitter. I'm hoping he does because, it's not, I don't care how many people follow me. If no one follows me, but if they're doing this to me and they're doing it to Malcolm Kendrick, they're doing it to all of us. Yeah. And by the way, I live with death threats. I have a concealed carry permit. I have to leave home packing. This has become my life.
Wow. Yeah. Vinnie, what was the original intention for, I know the backstory, but what were you really hoping to get out of creating that first documentary? And then I guess following on to that, the other 2 documentaries that you've made.
I didn't really have many thoughts. I didn't think anyone was going to watch it.
Really?
Look, when I wrote the book, they say dance like no one's looking. I wrote a book like no one was going to read it. You guys haven't read the book yet, right?
No. Not yet, but we're going to.
Okay, you're going to read this book and go, wow, I've never read such a hodgepodge of a book in your life. Yet it was up for Audible Book of the Year. We still sell more of that book on Audible. That's another thing. The book has been sold several hundred thousands of times. In any world. Like you could sell 6,000 books and be on a New York Times bestseller list, right? That book has been sold hundreds of thousands of times. Shouldn't I have at least 100,000 followers? Yeah. Based on the book alone, right? And you can't make this stuff. The truth is stranger than fiction. When I wrote the book, I wrote it as if no one was going to ever read it. Mm-hmm. And then after everyone started reading it, it went to the top of Amazon and went, uh-oh, maybe I should have left some of this stuff out. Maybe I should have not said. But I didn't think anyone was going to read it. When I did the movie, the whole time, I felt like I was going with play money. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you the only time I got concerned was that we couldn't finish the movie with the money we had, and I had to put some of my own money into it. And then it got real. Yeah.
Right.
We were at the 1 yard line and someone had to, get it over the goal line, and I had to put some of my own money into it. And then it got real. And then I was like, God, I hope it makes enough money that I get my money back.
Right.
I didn't think anyone was going to watch the movie. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Could we dive into some of the stuff that you put into Beyond Impossible? Because I think there's so much there to unpack. One of my favorite quotations of the movie was "take the animal out of the equation," which I think is straight from one of the CEOs of either Beyond or one of the replacement.
Mr. Brown, yes.
Foods. Yeah.
Pat Brown.
Yeah.
What comes to mind when you hear something like that?
It's just crazy talk.
Yeah.
It's crazy talk, I think these vegan leaders, and I'm not talking about the average person who becomes a vegan because they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because 70 some odd, close to 80% of them stop being vegans within 3 months. They figure it out.
And you really addressed that well, that point specifically. Like, people are well-intentioned just
Yeah.
to say it, like, I think you addressed that point really well in the documentary.
Yeah, I have nothing against people who they're trying to do the best they can. Everyone's trying to do the best they can. But these vegan elitists who want to think that somehow we're above the food chain, we're not. You know, if you take away society, you take away the cities, you take away everything. Hell, move these crazy fucks out to the Serengeti and tell them, okay, be a vegan now.
Yeah.
Here, you know what? We'll start you off. We'll give you a 3-day supply of whatever you want for 3 days. And we'll even give you a tent. You want a tent? Here's a tent. We'll give you something to cook your veggies on. We'll give you some camping gear. We'll go out to Coleman. We'll get you some stuff from REI, right? Give them 3 days and say, okay, we'll be back to pick you up in a month. You know what you'll find out there? You'll find pieces of tent and some monkey poop. You'll find pieces of tent and some hippo flop. You'll find they will get eaten up. They forget that they're on the fucking food chain.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
We're all on the food chain. Yeah, we live in beautiful homes. And we're protected, right? It rains, it snows, what have you. We're protected. And we go to the store, we browse around. Oh, look, they got the meat, they got the this. You get it all, right? Remove that. Remove it. Make money obsolete. Take money out of the equation. Money is nothing more than a bartering tool to get shelter and food. Take money out of the equation and just say, go live. Go live like the rest of the animal kingdom. You won't make it. You won't make it. You know who will make it? The meat eaters. Okay?
Yeah.
Meat eaters. Matter of fact, give the vegans guns too. Give them the same guns you would give the meat eater. And watch who's there in the month. Watch who's there in the month.
Yeah.
Am I making this up? Can you see what happened to a vegan on the Serengeti versus a meat eater? And we know this because the Maasai tribe, they still run around with spears. You ever see these people?
Oh,
They're incredible.
They look like outside receivers, and some of these guys are like 70.
Yeah.
They look like wide receivers and cornerbacks. You look at them going, oh my God, you must just do abs all day long. And these guys are in their 70s, still out there hunting with spears. I'm not making this up. Like, gun. Who needs a gun?
Yeah.
Give me a rock.
But Vinny, even with the Maasai tribe, right? It's well known that the majority of them are eating almost all their calories from milk, meat, and blood. Their cattle are considered to be sacred. There have been all these narratives that have been pushed that diet is bullshit and that's not actually what they eat. And then there's all these people that have said, look, I literally live with the Maasai tribe. That's where the majority of their calories are coming from. So it's like, you even see this plant-based narrative penetrating these tribes that are examples of how a high-fat diet can help you thrive. It's the same thing with the Inuit and the Eskimos.
Yeah, I was going to mention Stefansson, who I chronicled in my first movie. There's another film I want you guys to watch. It's called, I'm looking it up.
I'm sure it's amazing.
It was put out by Pete Evans. Pete's been on my show. He's a good guy. As a matter of fact, he was the first guy to call me to congratulate me when the movie came out and it started doing really well. By the way, his movie's called The Magic Pill.
So
it was
good.
put, I want to say, have you guys seen The Magic Pill?
Yeah, it's incredible. I saw it on you. It's free on YouTube. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know why it's free on YouTube? Because they sold it to Netflix and then it started doing really well. What do you think Netflix did? They buried it.
Yep.
That's Pete Evans. It's a buddy of mine. That movie got buried, but go look at that. They're talking to the Aboriginals, right? And they go to these tribes out in the middle of this island, this continent of Australia. And they go to the Aboriginals and they go, look, the reason you got this problem, that problem, and the other problem is because we took away the food you guys were eating for eons and we started giving you packaged crap. We taught you about wheat bix. We taught you about grains and the whole thing. all of these people, these aboriginals are fat and the whole thing. And when they gave them the meat back and the dairy and the eggs, some of the older women, they weren't even that old. They were like my age. They were like, oh my God, this is what we used to eat. What happened? Like they were sitting there trying to figure out what happened to us. As a people, what happened to us? We used to eat this way, and then we went away from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't help but think about how that's just being disseminated across all of the Western world, where we're getting the food system is evolving so fast that we're getting more and more detached from the whole process of what it means to sustain and feed ourselves.
Look, I tell everyone, you might not like this, but you should go hunting at least once in your life.
Yeah. Are you a big hunter?
I grew up hunting. I grew up in southern Louisiana, and
Gators?
we couldn't hunt. Gators were almost extinct when I was a kid. They brought them back through farming, and for everyone that they kept farming, they had to put 2 out in the wild. Now we have too many gators in the wild, so they have to, because they don't have any natural predators. The only predator they had were Cajuns shooting them and then selling them to Italy, because it's hide, right? I grew up eating gator meat. Gator meat is great. But I grew up rabbit hunting, deer hunting, and a lot of bird hunting. And my wife is European. I was just in England over Christmas, went pheasant hunting. I tell everyone, take an animal at least once in your life. Go out and do it right. Go with someone who understands hunting. Let them teach you how to use the gun and the whole thing. You need to take an animal, and you need to dress it out and clean it. You need to dismember it and do all of the stuff. And once you do that, you will understand and appreciate meat. You will never, sometimes I'll eat meat where the sell-by date was 3 days ago. I will still eat it because I have this relationship. I'll cook the crap out of it, but I have this relationship with what it takes, the sacrifice that animal made, and I'm not throwing it away. It's got to really be bad for me to throw it away. That's why when I think things are going bad, I hustle to eat it. I hustle to cook it and eat it. Have you guys ever hunted? Do you guys hunt?
I'm just starting to get into it, but both of us have done this bison harvest out at a ranch here in Texas. That was not us pulling the trigger, but we took part in the whole experience. So we're slowly getting involved in that whole process, which is, it was eye-opening for both of us. Good.
It's quite the experience to take another life.
Yeah.
And I get the vegans when they go, well, I don't want to see anything die. It's like, well, unfortunately for you to have tofurkey, a lot of things have to die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not making that up. I wish I was, but and nobody, you saw it in my movie. I mean, John, the farmer was like, look, you can't show up at someone's house with 2,000 pounds worth of meat at 2 a.m. because that meat has to be, you have to get the guts out. You need to, it's called dressing, field dressing. You have to get that meat, that gut out, or it's going to ruin the meat. Right. So you have all of these wild hogs, and there's no one to, I wish there was a service that would go out and shoot them and take them. And can you imagine what that would cost to have to butcher all of that and get it to poor communities? It would just be astronomical, even if you were giving it to them for free.
Right.
If there was a government program, it would just be an astronomical cost. And it kills me to know that they're shooting these animals in cold blood. Right. And they don't get to use them. It's very sad, very sad. In England, they get upset and they go, well, these guys that go out and shoot pheasant, it's a big deal. It's expensive to do. You go on this property, it's like something you would see out of one of these English things, right? And you wear proper clothes and you got the tie and the coat on, and they serve you alcohol while you have a gun in your hand, which is something we don't do in America.
Yeah.
You're drinking in the morning, which makes you feel like an alcoholic. And you go out and you hunt. Right. And, I think on one of the hunts, I took in 30 some odd birds or something like that. And there's all these people that are employed by the hunt. This is how they make their living. The people who beat the bushes and the whole thing. And the vegan types will tell you, the PETA people will tell you, well, they seed these fields all year long. So, and they feed these animals and then they beat the bushes so they'll fly so that rich people can go and shoot them. Right. And I was like, well, I'm not rich, but I did shoot them. But when you ask them, well, what would you like to see? And they go, well, we think chickens should be free range. It's like, okay, this is the most free range you could be. This bird had a wonderful life. It was fed handsomely throughout its whole life. It was taken care of. And yeah, now it's flying really high. And if you're a really good shot, you can take one of these birds down. Mm-hmm. Right. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have factory farming and say that's wrong. And then when people go out and shoot these birds for sport, you can't say that's wrong either, because all of the birds are consumed. And I'll tell you this, at the end of the day, when we came in with our harvest of birds, there's a lot of people who work, who they earn their living. And they said, sir, how many, do you want all of the birds to be cleaned for you and sent to where? And I said, no, I gave a tip, a customary tip to the steward, and they hand them out across all the people. And I said, do you have anyone to take the birds? He goes, yes, everyone on this hunt will love the birds. And that got a bigger smile across people's face than the tip. And the tip was sizable. Mm. And that's when you know that you did the right thing. These people are feeding their family on these birds.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought about bringing, you guys know this, my sister-in-law is Kristen Scott Thomas. And it's like, I wonder if I can bring it back to Kristen's house and we can we can have some pheasant tonight and the whole thing. But I didn't want to do that and screw up whatever they were going to have for dinner that night and whatever. Right. So I said, you know what, just take them all. And, next time I come out, I'll find out what's for dinner. And of course, on that day, I won't hit any birds. Hey, Vinny's going to bring home some pheasant, and you come home with nothing. So you can't win for trying when it comes to any of that stuff.
Yep. Do you think that it's just a lack of understanding of just the ethics of life and death by the vegan party? Do you think that's a lot of the issue that we're experiencing right now?
I think with people who are doing vegan for all the right reasons, they are ignorant to the facts because they're told a set of facts that are not real. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
I had a guy arguing with me on Twitter last night, and he goes, oh yeah, read this from nutritionfacts.org. And it's like, it's Michael Greger. Everything that guy says is a lie. He's not even a doctor. Most people don't know that, by the way.
Yeah. He's never practiced.
He never did his residency. And his reasons for doing that was he thought he would be the doctor to go out and teach other doctors. That's what he says. Okay.
Yeah, that sound clip was, I actually didn't know that. And I always get, I don't want to like crap on the guy, but I always get like a little weirded out when I hear him speaking. There's just something about the way that his messaging comes across. It's like, just like, very like matter of fact. And like, this is the truth. And there's like, there's no other side of the argument. And I found that interesting in your documentary, the piece where you talked about how you reached out to all these vegan doctors and people who, articulate that they want to talk about the science. And, my idea of science is that there's a discourse, right? Like you talk about the things that are happening in the world and you figure out what's best. And like right now, if you look at the health system, there's clearly something going on that isn't being addressed by the medical community, right? So what are we getting wrong? And the fact that they didn't show up to the table was very interesting. And obviously they had their reasons, but
their reasons were pretty flimsy. And by the way, all of these vegan doctors, the top vegan doctors, all of them are all open invitation, all of them, to come on my podcast. This has been a 11-year open invitation. I've done 2,100 podcasts.
Yeah.
Open invite to all you can't just be any vegan. You got to be one of the Mount Rushmore vegans, right? You got to be, any of those guys. And I tell them the first question you have to answer is, if exogenous vitamins did not exist, how would a vegan survive without getting B12?
Right.
And if you can answer that satisfactory, we can move on to more questions. But because they can't answer that simple question, game over. B12 is, an essential vitamin. If you don't take it, your body won't make it. And, the second question I always tell them is going to be, how are you supposed to get all of the amino acids from a complete protein if you don't eat animal protein? And you got to answer those two questions. And they know that I know more about it than they do.
Right.
No matter what they try to do, they know I'm gonna shit on their pea protein. I'm gonna shit on their hemp protein. I'm gonna shit on their spirulina. I'm gonna shit on all, because I know the truth, right? I'm gonna shit on. They know that, and they know they can never get past the first question, the B12. So for that reason, it would be a whole podcast talking about the number one question, because they can't answer it. Right. And I'm not going to move on until they answer it. And since they can't answer it, and of course they go, well, now we have an exogenous vitamin source. Okay. But we didn't in the 1920s. So how was a vegan supposed to live back then?
Yeah, they weren't.
Right.
They didn't exist.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Is all protein made the same? No,
absolutely not. Notice how I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
When I just had a parent earlier today go, what about, whey protein for my kids, football players? Like, give them more meat. You want a complete protein, eat red meat, eat liver, which I can't stand, and eat eggs. Eat eggs. I was, I'm going to name drop again. I was doing Dr. Drew's show a while back, and it was Adam and Drew. And it was with this movie. I always go to my friend's shows to promote them. And Adam said something like, if you can only have one food for a month. Yeah, I said eggs. I didn't even, it was eggs. You can't, you get fat, you get protein, you get all of the amino acids. It's the embryo of an animal. You can't do it. It's the best food in the world.
So complete.
Yeah, it's just.
And even like milk, I feel like milk and eggs, between those two, there's such complete nutrient sources, yet both have been demonized over the past several decades to the point where people are afraid to consume them.
Yeah. That's a fact.
I mean, it's honestly scary to see how these narratives can really take hold and gain gravity to them. And then people don't really know it. I genuinely feel bad because people want to do the what's right for themselves and what's right for, humanity. And then they get information that steers them in a direction that totally, deviates them from like the truth of the matter. I guess that's why a lot of vegans don't end up staying on the vegan diet, and they eventually have to come to some reconciliation with why they feel like crap.
83% of them can't.
Yeah, it's close to all of them. And I'll tell you this, I'm not going to mention any names, but I know some big time vegans at the top of the vegan food chain, pun intended. They call them Chegans because they eat meat.
Yeah.
I know some vegans who eat meat, and they have to eat meat in order to sustain, some exercise and this and that. They're athletes and whatever, but they're making a living off of being a vegan.
Yeah.
So they have to eat meat on the side just to get by. I'm not going to ever mention any names.
That sort of speaks to like the virtue signaling out there, doesn't it? Like,
yeah,
they'd prefer to kind of have the virtuous values of what it means to be a vegan in today's world.
Yep.
Yeah, look, if I was in college today, and I wanted to get laid, and there was some patchouli oil wearing chick talking about vegan, I'd do. Yeah, baby, I'm into this.
Plant-based. Yeah.
Eat all my meat and then go over there.
Yeah.
They claim they can smell it on you. They can't smell meat on you. Vegan.
Unless you're doing what we're doing, rubbing the. Have you tried some tallow skincare stuff yet?
No, I use tallow in my cooking, but I
Yeah.
haven't used tallow skincare.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Harry's got a recipe he'll send to you, Vinny.
Yeah.
Oh, good. You have my email. Don't hand my email out to anyone, but you have my email, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, I'll shoot it over to you. It's pretty simple, but the tallow it's amazing. Throw it in the hair.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I don't
Vinny-
have that much hair left, but
No, you got a good head of hair.
I fake it. I'm almost bald. I mean, look at this.
Hey,
This
if
mixed
I've
hair.
got that at late 50s, I'll be praying every night.
Yeah, you will. You're doing well. You'll be okay.
Yeah, he'll be good. Vinny, one of the things I was going to say, Harry reminded me of this. It's one thing, morally you try and go vegan, you do a true plant-based approach, fruits, vegetables, etc. But I think part of the reason why Beyond Impossible is so good is that it really breaks down the behind the scenes metrics behind these fake commodities like Impossible Foods, Beyond Beef, etc., where these things are being marketed as being nutritionally and environmentally superior. Meanwhile, it's like a 20-step process. They're loaded with refined seed oils. They're loaded with sugars. I think you literally list out all the ingredients, and it's like,
Yeah.
you imagine a world, the delusion that we've gotten to where people actually think that eating this is healthier than eating beef. It's just insane.
Well, they think it's healthier than eating beef, number one. And number two, more importantly, they think that is causing less CO2. Is when it's not, because methane only stays in the atmosphere for 10 years. This stuff is up there for thousands of years. And no one is, they're just, and when you start thinking about it, governments are behind this. You have politicians, Meatless Monday, no meat in this school and that school. And that's happening in California and New York. And you look around and go, really, guys? You guys are going off of feelings?
Yeah.
That's how we're raising kids now, off of feelings? Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. We've already screwed up one generation. You want to screw up another one?
And what really bothered me about one of the clips that you included, which honestly, it scares me to even think about it, but one of the CEOs, one of the Brown guys, was saying, he said if he could snap his fingers, he would eliminate cows from Earth. And I'm thinking, what if you're a humanitarian, someone who's pro like a rich life throughout Earth, you would want to be promoting biodiversity across every ecosystem on Earth. And cows' roles in sequestering carbon and cycling all these nutrients back into the soil is something that I don't think a lot of people understand, but they're massively important for that. And, America we used to have millions of ruminant animals roaming pastures, and now
more so than now.
Yeah.
When bison roamed the land, there was more bison than we have cattle now. We found, I think, 4 or 5 different places where he said that same statement. I think we put 2 in. We did 2 in the movie.
2, yeah.
Did he really say that? And I put another one just to.
You said it just like that. Did he really say that?
Yeah. It must have been me that did the movie. But yeah, it's like you look at that stuff and you go, okay, wait. He said that once, and then we just went and looked for it, and he said it a bunch of times. I'm like, why?
What makes someone say that?
I don't know.
It shook me up. I was like, this is like it's scary. That stance is that's a very scary stance for someone to take who has a lot of power and influence and money.
Yeah, it's just crazy people. It's I was watching a thing, It's on one of the networks. I don't know what it is. It's called We Crash. It's about the guy who created WeWork.
Mm.
And I was watching it. I watched the first 4 episodes, and it's amazing how a crazy person can just start a thing and
Yeah.
turn it into something. And he got people to put billions of dollars into this idea that couldn't possibly work.
Yeah.
And smart people with lots of money went, oh yeah, let's put money into that .com or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And
Insane.
it's just, it's crazy what you could get people to do.
It's almost like the world of entrepreneurship and starting a business at that level. It does take a certain person, and I'd imagine the unwavering belief in themselves and what they're doing kind of creates this illusion almost where they are willing to go to the end of the earth to get whatever they're trying to do done. And they have to believe in everything that they're putting out there to the nth degree. And then like when you look at it from a third party's perspective, you're like, that is just not something that someone who's trying to promote this whole planetary, beautiful earth perspective should be saying.
Look, I mean, I look at a lot of things like that where I go, what just happened? I've always, like the whole Me Too thing started a while back. Remember Me Too, Me Too, Me Too, Me Too, Me Too. And then I looked around and went, why didn't anyone Me Too President Clinton? And that's like the ultimate Me Too, right?
Yeah.
How did he get a pass? Or sometimes I'll look around and I'll go, there's people who, you guys won't know who this is, but there's people who want to let Roman Polanski back in this country. Do you guys know who that is?
The name rings a bell.
He was a guy, he was married to a woman named Sharon Tate, who was a famous actress. Sharon Tate was one of the people that got killed in the Manson murders. And he was a big producer. Roman Polanski was a big movie director and producer here in the United States. And he drugged and anally raped a 13-year-old girl. Okay. Instead of standing trial or doing anything, he left the country and moved to France. And France, being the pussies they are, let him move there. And he's been living in France, making movies, has a wonderful life. He just can't come back to the United States because he would be arrested and tried and thrown in jail. There are people in this country who think Roman Polanski should come back in the country. Who think, oh, he's done his time. He's done his time. He's been living in France.
Yeah.
All these years. This was back in the 70s, right? And the people who do the Oscars and everything, oh, we should do a thing for this guy. Really? This guy?
Yeah.
You guys want to fall on the Roman Polanski sword?
Yeah.
See, when I hear things like that, I go, the truth is stranger than fiction.
Mm.
So if we could do that with Bill Clinton and Roman Polanski, we could do anything.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like when you sit there and you try to figure out why the magic pill is taken off of Netflix or why this guy is canceled and that guy gets to walk around, no cancel. He used to star on an intern. He told an intern he was in love with her. This is the most powerful man on the planet. Never got Me Too'd.
Yeah.
And I don't love or hate Bill Clinton. I just look at that and go, how do we decide who gets what?
Yep.
Right. And these same people seem to want Roman Polanski to. When you guys look up Roman Polanski later,
yeah,
you're going to sit there and go, what the fuck? This old guy was right.
Yeah.
Look at this.
It's
drugged and anally raped a 13-year-old. Okay.
I mean, that person should be sitting in jail for the rest of their life.
Yeah, pretty much, but he's not. Look, people were saying at the time, Weinstein should have pulled a Polanski. He could have gotten out of the country. Weinstein, leave. There are places that will protect these people. Yeah. When you look at that and you go, well, what about these vegans? It's like, man, I don't understand anything. I've been looking at this stuff my whole life.
So I look at Beyond Impossible as almost like that card game that you would play, you know, the game Bullshit, where you would sit around and just call bullshit. That's how I mean, I view your documentary as something like that, where you're just sitting there and you're like, enough's enough. I can't watch this go on much longer.
Yeah, people have asked me if I can do a series. You know, I've been asked, hey, would you do a series of just going after things that are obviously wrong that we think are different? And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to be on television any more than I am. Yeah, I think I have enough.
Yeah, 21,000 episodes on the podcast. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's like, if someone came to me with a lucrative deal and said, hey, would you do 10 things for this group, 10, 20 or 30-minute episodes, I would, but that number would have to be enough to get me out of my basement. I'm in my basement right now. It would take a lot of money to get me out of this basement to go do any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vinny, what do you think the best ways are for people, someone that's listening to this, that's starting to come around to the real narrative on nutrition, just to kind of roll up their sleeves and just have more of an impact on spreading the right messaging about nutrition and what we're feeding to our kids?
I would say, starting with my movies is, people call my first movie an eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
I would say watch any of my 3 movies, either the first one or the last one. They're both eye-opening movies. So either Beyond Impossible or the first Fata documentary. I would tell them to read Gary Taubes's book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. I would also tell them to read Nina Teichol's book, The Big Fat Surprise.
Fantastic.
I would tell them to read my book if they want some comedy relief. What else would I tell them to go do? I would tell them to watch The Magic Pill. I'm on your podcast promoting another guy's movie. These are all good films on the subject.
Yeah.
So,
well, we really appreciate your voice in creating the documentary Beyond Impossible. I think it speaks to a lot of the things that we are focused on with talking about the food history, and just really glad that we got to connect. This has been a great little riff we got going on here. We're gonna have to have you on again.
I'm always around, man. I'm willing to talk to anyone who's interested in talking to me. That's the way I've done all of this stuff. Sometimes people have me on their first podcast and they'll go, wow, you're on my first show. I'm like, yeah, someone might hear it.
Yeah.
Someone. And that's good enough for me.
Well, you've been a huge inspiration for us, Vinny, and I'm not just saying that. We definitely would. What we're going to do is we're going to order 2 copies of your book, and we'll link to it in the podcast. And after we get the chance to read it, I think it would be amazing to have you back on for a part 2.
Yeah, pull stuff out of the book, and like I said, that book is a wild ride. And if you guys are into triathlons and all that, you'll like that part of it too.
And Vinny, you're based in LA still?
No, I left LA 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. I live in Virginia now.
Oh, nice. I'm a Virginia boy.
Where are you from?
Fairfax.
Yeah, I'm a little south of that. I'm down around the Charlottesville area.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
I'll be over that way this week, actually.
Cool. The weather's good.
Sibling graduating from UVA, so.
Oh wow! So you'll be. My daughter is graduating law school at UVA this year.
Excellent.
Where are you guys located?
I'm in Austin.
Yeah. And I was asking you, Vinny, I'm in San Diego. So I didn't know if you were still in LA. I would say we should meet up for a bike ride or something like that, but we'll have to figure something else out.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'm there. I fly in about once a month. I have a vitamin company, a coffee company, and a foods company, and they're all still in LA. I run a company from this desk in my weight room. So yeah, I'm always in LA.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to you because we're very interested in getting into the beef tallow space and starting to put out products that actually support our style of eating. So we'll have to separately talk about that too.
Yeah, I'm always I'm a good ear to bend. Like I said, I have 3 companies and one of them is a foods company. That's the toughest one. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Foods company.
It takes a lot, and you got to have a strong will.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, for everyone listening, go check out Beyond Impossible. It's an amazing documentary, unpacks a lot of great information, and we will most certainly have Vinnie back on the show.
Cool.
Vinnie, thanks a bunch.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother.